Read it right now.
Okay.
All right. We open this public hearing. I hereby open the public hearing for the taking of real property in the town of Maynard for fire department purposes, as authorized by Article 15 at the March 26, 2018 special town meeting. Notice was given on April 25th, 2018 to the following parties: As Clock Tower Owner LLC, P. Swiss Realty Trust, and published in the Beacon Village on May 3rd, 2018. The real property to be taken by the town is comprised of 4 portions of land located at 30 Sudbury Street, 146 Main Street, and Church Place, so-called, totaling 41,418 square feet. And are shown as area number 1 equals 7,004 square feet, area number 2 equals 15,776 square feet, and area 3 equals 15,676 square feet, and area 4 equals 2,962 square feet, on a plan entitled Proposed A&R Limits and Final Parcel Exhibit 30 Sudbury Street, Maynard, Massachusetts, prepared for the town of Maynard by Niche Engineering, dated July 26, 2017, and revised February 8th, 2018. So, is there anyone here speaking that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? It's taking? Okay, no one here. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak against the proposal? Okay. Any discussion? No discussion? Would anybody like to have any discussion? Okay. Then, as of 6:32, I'm closing the public hearing. Make a motion as follows. I move that the board adopt the order of taking as approved by Article 15 at the March 26, 2018 special town meeting of 4 portions of land located at 30 Sudbury Street, 146 Main Street, and Church Place, totaling 41,418 square feet, and shown as Area 1, 7,004 square feet, Area 2, 15,776 square feet, Area 3, 15,676 square feet, Area 4, 2,962 square feet, on a plan entitled Proposed A&R Limits and Final Parcel Exhibit 30 Sudbury Street, Maynard, Mass. Prepared for the town of Maynard by Niche Engineering, dated July 26, 2017, and revised February 5th, 2018, for fire department purposes, and further to award damages in the amount of $460,000. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay.
Before there's actually a vote, Council, can you give us an update as to where actually they are at and what has transpired since we last got together relative to the clearing up of the title issue?
Sure. So the sheriff's sale went through this morning. It was completed.
Right.
So the title's clear. Not that it wouldn't have been had they not done their sale, but they've straightened their ducks out, and the award of damages and apportioning of damages is going to be much easier than it would have been had they not gotten their foreclosure sale completed.
Okay. So the vote requires a roll call vote. Your choices are in favor, opposed, abstained. And mine is first. I'm in favor. Levine Pirro.
In favor?
Mr. Donovan.
In favor.
Mr. Gavin.
In favor.
Ms. Steele.
In favor.
Very good. Okay. That was easy.
Yeah, I have a form that they can fill out for you. They use for the trail. To edit it.
That's all we have to sign is that piece of paper?
I think so, yeah, just in one piece.
Start.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll open our regular meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand and join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I wasn't sure if Becky was in the shoot.
Do we have any public comments from anybody this evening? No? Okay. Do we know if Mike is coming?
I don't think this coming.
Will he send you a letter?
He sent me a letter, but I wasn't sure if he was gonna make it or not. He wasn't sure at the time. Mike Noble.
You did tell us he wasn't coming.
He did? Okay. All right, so we have a letter, I'll read, from the Town Administrator Search Committee. Mr. Noble sent me. This computer is working. All right. Town Administrator Search Committee met on Friday, June 22nd, 2018, to discuss how to proceed with the selection of a new town administrator. The choices were whether to resubmit all or some of the names that were previously submitted, or to start over and seek newer candidates. It was determination of the committee that the Board of Selectmen did not eliminate the candidates from consideration, but a technicality occurred where the board ran out of time prior to choosing a candidate. Therefore, the committee will be resubmitting the remaining 3 candidates, Lana Bayaki, Gregory Johnson, and Andrew Scribner McLean, for your consideration to the position of Town Administrator. Mike Noble, Chair, Town Administrator Search Committee, Town of Maynard. So, discussions, conversations, comments? Anyway, we're into talking about what we're gonna do going forward. So those are the 3 candidates they gave us back, 3 people we've interviewed, and have their resumes and all their information.
So we on 3, or you just get, are we on 4 now? Final
Huh?
discussion?
We're into the follow-up discussion piece. I will say that I've had a comment made to me that some would like us to, not be hasty, not rush to judge, and hold over this decision till the next group of selectmen is in place, get a new committee and go through the whole process again. And so I suggested that I would make those comments based on that discussion I had with somebody. So I've made those comments, and how does everybody feel about that?
I've heard those comments as well. I disagree with them. The decision rests with the elected board members that are actually in office at the time. So if we decide to go forward with the majority of picking a candidate, that's what we do. If we don't, then the next board has the opportunity to do the same thing. So,
Okay. Melissa?
I agree with Terrence as well. I think this board is very vested in the process. I think the search committee has done a really thorough job vetting candidates. They felt that the finalists were appropriate to send back to us, and I think this board has all the skills and tools capable of making a decision to move forward that's best for the town.
Okay. Cheryl?
I would agree with the statements made
Okay.
by my colleagues.
David?
I'm troubled.
Okay.
Basically, I think that based on the discussion that we had at the last time we discussed this, I don't know if we had come to any conclusion as the chair of the selection committee said, relative to the rest of the members, but we certainly didn't. I don't think there was any clear consensus on the part of the board, and I am concerned that
Clear consensus in what direction?
clear consensus other than the person that we offered the job to.
That's, Well,
So I don't think,
I wouldn't suggest that what we talked about was if he did not accept the job, that we would meet as quick as possible and discuss the remaining candidates, was the discussion. That I know to be a fact, but, so that was the discussion. The discussion was if Jason Silva did not accept the offer because he had accepted a prior offer from the town of Marblehead, that we would meet and try and make the decision as soon as possible so we didn't risk losing the candidates. So that being said, the next morning, when I found out that he had indeed accepted the position, and he notified me, officially, I called Becky and Michelle Sokolowski and tried to set up an emergency meeting or any type of meeting to get that done, and was told we would have to wait till the following Monday, which pushed us over the time limit, which I believe would be the only reason that we didn't make the decision 12, 13 days ago, rather than that we didn't make any decision or have any discussion.
so, I mean, if the majority of the board comes up out of the remaining candidates that have been presented with a candidate that we can agree upon, I guess, or that the majority agrees upon, I guess that's the way the process works. I'm not convinced that we wouldn't, as a community, be better served by having a new selection process.
Well, we had complete confidence in the 9 people we put into the committee.
No, it has nothing to do with the committee members.
So we had confidence in the selections that they made. We didn't finish our responsibility because we ran out of time. So we sent it back to them as town council suggested, under the rules that town council, I'm sure, discussed with Mike Noble and whoever else was interested in the committee, and they made a decision, and here's the decision. So, these are 9 people that invested a lot of time and energy and effort into the process,
No doubt.
and they returned to us what they think are, again, the best candidates based on what they know was out there based on their original search. So I think that they did a good job, and to ignore their desire or their suggestions is,
Well, I would argue that we haven't ignored them. We just, if we were not to choose one of those 5, we haven't ignored them. We have decided that we think that we should go back and get another slate of candidates. I also think that there's an issue from a charter standpoint that, despite the opinion of council, I respectfully disagree. But I understand I'm not an attorney, so I don't have the authority to make that judgment. But I think that the charter is pretty clear that the selection committee shall return with a new selection of candidates. And I understand that, technically, they went back, they looked, and they gave another slate of candidates. But I think that's sort of playing with words.
I would have to disagree. I'm ready to make a motion to move this thing forward if anybody else doesn't have any other comments.
Let's hear the motion.
As I stated in the meeting, my first choice was Gregory Johnson, so my first choice was not the gentleman who didn't select the job or chose to go somewhere else. I make a motion that we offer the job to Gregory Johnson as the next town administrator.
I would second that. He was also my first choice.
discussion?
Yeah, my comments are, this has nothing to do with personalities or whatever, but rather has to do with experience level and what we need for a community. My hearing his testimony, I say, because I was at a deposition all day, but hearing his comments during the interview, I don't believe he's ever written a budget. I don't believe, we need somebody who can come in who is well-versed on budget writing and can basically take over our town hall. He has zero experience in the town hall level as a direct supervisor of any individuals. His role over in Westford is merely support, and that's not taking away from the experience that he's developed as an employee over there. As I mentioned during our initial discussion, I think he would make a great candidate for an assistant town administrator based on the level of experience that he's gotten so far in his career. But I do not think that he is qualified yet as a town administrator. And as a matter of fact, based on, if we were to choose from the remaining list, I would actually favor Andrew for the same consistent reasons, I guess, that Melissa and Terrence indicated. As you go down my list, Andrew would have been the next choice. So if we're going to stay with consistency, I would not be in favor of the motion as presented.
I think we heard that discussion before, but I think your second choice wasn't Andrew. Your third choice was Andrew, just like all of our third choices was Andrew. So your second choice was a different person, then turned down the job. So I would submit that, not to get into an argument, I would submit that Gregory Johnson has more leadership experience than any of the other candidates combined. Just because he didn't do it in a town hall setting is, none of them had the leadership experience that I think we were hoping for. In this case, I think the upside to the town, and with a dynamic personality like him and someone who's invested already in this town, was apparent. And so I feel compelled to stay with my original candidate.
Well, I guess.
Choose not to support it, it's up to you.
I guess my response to that comment would be, if we don't have the leadership that we were hoping for, then I don't understand why you think these candidates are the ones we should choose from. You've just admitted in your comment that we did not get the leadership we were hoping for.
So don't put
Quote,
words in my
unquote.
mouth, David.
That's what you
Don't
said.
put words in my mouth. I think anytime you're going to hire somebody, because I do it for a living, I'm not sure if you actually do hire somebody, but you're always looking for the most experience and the most upside. Absent that, you deal with who you have. Now, there was a search committee that went through of 9 people who put in the time. They felt that these 5 candidates were fine selections for the town. They're also residents. They also have a responsibility. They also have a duty to look out for the rest of the community. And I feel they've done that. And I'm not going to do anything to undermine that. I'm very confident in my choice. You might not be. And that's okay. That's why we have disagreements. I'm just telling you, I made a motion. It's been seconded. I'm comfortable with Gregory Johnson. If you're not, then vote no.
Cheryl?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been, I want to, go back for a moment and kind of echo my thoughts with respect to the rigor that went into the process, because I have some degree of concern that in sort of the way events have transpired in the space in between, there risks being kind of a, I want to underscore my confidence in the fact that the 9 members of the committee, in vetting through 33 applications that they originally looked at. They went through, I think, an interview set with 9 potential candidates and uniformly endorsed a slate of 5 to put forward to us. I don't believe that going through the process of reforming a committee, potentially a new committee of people to go through that process, would fundamentally shift either the pool of applicants or the types of recommendations that we would come forward with. I think we ended up with a very strong slate of candidates to consider. When I reflect back on our original conversation several weeks ago coming out of it, we had a very robust dialogue, or at least the way that the preliminary cut of votes went through. 4 of the 5 candidates that were recommended all had, strong endorsement of, like, ooh, I was kind of between this or that, or this is definitely my number one. So I continue to have confidence in that slate of candidates. And while one may have accepted another position, while another may have opted out of the process, I don't think that we should allow that to in any way reframe our thinking about the quality of candidates who remain on the slate for our consideration. I've taken a fair amount of time looking back over the notes that I took across the interviews, reflecting on our conversations, and taking Terrence's point, right, that there's in any process where you're looking for an applicant, you have to look at the pushes and takes of, where are the strengths, where are the weaknesses, where are we going. I do believe that we have within Greg a very strong candidate for the role. I think that it's also a candidate who understands where their knowledge gaps are in a way that is sometimes unique among applicants, in the sense that I think that he would know where his spaces are to be filled. I think that we as a board would know where those gaps are that need to be supported and attention paid to. I think the level of personal commitment that has been made around the education, the professional development, the network of mentors that he described during the course of the interview, as well as his professional experience, I think, makes him a strong candidate for the role, so I would endorse that.
Okay. My thoughts are similar to you, everybody's thoughts, that you guys are here until you're not here. And, you know, watching what happens locally, state level, federal level, every level, it's always, you know, things happen at the end of sessions that some people disapprove of or would rather have wait till their session occurs, and that's just, you know, that's just not the system or the way it works. Number one. Number two, I have, you know, got the tapes from Becky of the interviews and went back through all the interviews a couple times each. And not being sure of Greg, the first time we met, I made a couple phone calls to a couple friends who were actually part of the military and asked some questions about Terrence's comments about leadership and what it takes to be a leader in that world in these days, and you know, made me much more comfortable with him as a choice as a leader. I also know that he's, you know, attended several MMA classes, functions, and different types of educational seminars centered around the type of job that we'd be asking him to do on his own. I know he's been in this town and taken a lot of interest in what goes on in our town. He's sat through our town meeting. He's been in, you know, he's been in other meetings and listened in on other things that have been going on in town. So he's taken an initiative, and he's, you know, which none of the other candidates have done. So I think that's a plus as far as I'm concerned. But
Oh,
this is my comments.
if I can respond to that, you've basically just described Andrew.
I've described Andrew.
Andrew sat through town meetings. Andrew has done more, actually, than Greg has, in that he has prepared budgets. He has worked with Maynard and with our staff. And I understand that there are some concerns among the board relative to potentially naming Andrew as our choice. But I think if you were to look at a list of things that you want in the town administrator in Maynard, and checked off left and right each one, experience level included, that Greg would probably not be the top of these three candidates.
Well, that's your opinion, David, you're welcome to
But
it.
that's what we're here doing, we're talking.
Well, no, what happened is four board members have already said positive things about one
That
candidate.
does not give me,
And
that
what
does
you're
not
saying-
take away my right to
and
have
what
my
you- I
opinion.
know, exactly, so that's why I said your opinion. But what you're basically saying is because we haven't done that checklist, that we really don't know what we're doing. That's how it comes across. So it's a little bit disingenuous, because you were part of setting up the questions and asking the questions to the
Yes, and I've been
candidate, just like everybody else
considered-
was.
And thank you, because.
And Andrew
it
wasn't
just
your
shows-
choice.
It just
He
shows
wasn't
my.
even your top two
He
choice
was-
before.
you-
Now
no,
suddenly
he
he's your top choice. I
He was my
understand
third
that.
choice,
Yeah.
and my first choice didn't accept the job. My second choice is no longer available on the slate, so I'm going to my third choice. I
Fine,
think-
and I'm
I think
sticking
what
with
I'm
my
doing is
first
being
choice.
quite consistent.
As is Selectman Levine Pirro, and other people are changing. So we either vote or we don't.
The second choice, who it turns out has less experience than Greg, by the way. But anyway,
Why do we need that type of comment?
I'm just saying, the second choice that we thought was very, very much experienced turns out to have little to no experience doing the things that you just mentioned. And if you want to get the phone number of the selectman from Linfield that I spoke to, I'd be glad to give it to you.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different story. So Terrence has made a motion, Melissa has seconded it, we had some discussion about it, and now we can vote on it. So can you reread the motion so we all understand what it is?
So the motion I made was to offer Gregory Johnston the role as town administrator,
Pending.
Any contract negotiation?
pending the contract negotiation.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
For the purposes of the unification of the town, and to know that Greg has my support coming into the town hall, I would ask that we revote so that it can show our unanimity as a board with his selection.
I don't understand that, what?
I want to be able to
It's okay.
show
I get
that
it. I get it.
I'm in
We're
support.
going to revote. So-
I don't disagree with bringing the gentleman in. I'm going to support him when he steps in the door. It's a proper thing to do.
Okay. Right there. We wouldn't disagree. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
No,
So now we have some minutes to accept. Minutes are from June 19th. I move to accept and approve the meeting minutes of June 19th, 2018 as shown.
I'll second that.
Let me take a look.
Any discussion on the minutes of June 19th? All those in favor?
I don't think I'm gonna change my. I don't think I'm gonna change my opinion. Yeah, no. That's what. Right, I mean, it's built into the charter for that reason. And I don't purport to have the expertise in
All right,
the
so,
contract aspect of it.
correspondence items,
Yeah.
we have A through E. I make a motion to move to accept the correspondence items as shown, A through E.
Second.
Thank you, David.
I just had a question on the Mary Murch resignation from school committee. Are we gonna lay forth any kind of procedure about how we're gonna appoint that person? I know it's jointly done between our board
No,
and
there's
school
a-
committee.
I think it's, again, I think it's a charter issue. There's something in there that outlines what the process is.
Okay.
And I don't know if they've got anybody that suggested they are interested yet, but
I've heard from some people.
Yeah, I think they got some letters of intent. I just didn't know if it had been like announced.
I think the process that we've used in the past, and Andrew outlined it, one of the last few meetings that we were here, where we have basically 7 days from the time that the resignation letter has been presented, which I guess was Friday, whatever day it was, Friday or Saturday that we got it. And then, correct me here, Andrew, because I'm sure you reviewed it more recently than I. But then there is a 21-day window, is there, that we have to set up the joint meeting with the school committee? And if no selection is made within that 21 days, then the Board of Selectmen independently can select the person to fill that spot.
That sounds accurate. I believe actually the 21-day period is instigated by the school board or school
By them
committee.
notifying us
That's
of
right.
an, okay.
Which is the deadline with the letter and stuff, and why Mary held
Yeah.
the resignation to a certain date. So I believe we've actually already received the school's indication, and it should be in the July 17th preliminary agenda. But you outlined the process approximately accurately.
So would be the,
Close enough.
Close enough for government work.
so would the idea with that be then that at that July 17th meeting, a slate of candidates is coming forward, or a singular preferred candidate for approval? Because I think that was part of the conversation before too, was wanting to make certain that there was an opportunity for dialogue.
But what we have done in the past, of course,
there's no questions right now.
The Housing Authority has a vacancy as well that will need a joint appointment, and I just want to confirm whether that's already been noticed to Andrew.
We received a letter from the director, Bob Larkin, a few days ago.
Okay, so we're
Too late
subject
for
to the
this
same
agenda.
30-day limit, because the Housing Authority is also looking for a June 17 joint meeting to
He
do that
indicated
appointment
that
as well.
he indicated that he would be bringing forth a candidate because it needs to be a resident, and it was being scheduled for the 17th
Okay, very good, thank you.
of July.
we have had both situations where there has been a slate of candidates because there have been a number of people that have shown interest, and there have been occasions where there has not been a slate of candidates because only one person showed interest.
Right.
My personal opinion is that we should notify the public that there's an opening and allow people who are interested to come in and present themselves to both boards.
Right.
So that a decision could be made.
And I know that was what we had kind of talked about the last time, was making sure that there was, word was kind of getting out through multiple channels about the opening, and
And that's what I was getting at. I was just hoping, like, if that's the point we're at, like, can we make a public announcement so that people know and where to send? I assume they're going to Justin Hem, who's chair right now. And what do they submit? Just a letter of intent, a resume, like,
I think they submit a letter of intent. It may actually go to the town clerk rather than the chairman of the school committee. I don't know if there's any formal requirement on that, but it's really, it's not a school committee thing at this point. It's a charter issue. So it's done by the clerk or by the administration.
I just think given how much people are concerned about the school committee and the board of selectmen and transparency, we make sure that anyone who wants to have a chance to
Yep.
go for this seat knows about it and has opportunity to do so. So maybe we should clarify and get the word out. as a town.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then if we do something similarly, like, a town announcement that we can push out through channels.
Yeah.
So now that the resignation's been officially received, I'll coordinate with the school committee, verify what the charter indicates we should be doing, and working with the schools, get the word out.
Perfect.
They may not be available on the 17th, so we may have to have a special meeting that,
That's the piece that I believe was already handled in the background. When
okay.
the school committee and/or the superintendent contacted us
Said
about the
they'd be available
details.
on the 17th?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the pieces are in place, except. And holy Verizon rates, my goodness.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. I saw somebody with Xfinity walk in, and I know that that's different than Verizon. I'm very concerned about the increase that I saw,
It's like 48%.
if I read it correctly.
No, it's like 48%.
It's huge.
Nearly double, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if I was reading it correct, but I'm very concerned by that, and I think people will be outraged when they see the increase.
Do they have an option to not choose local TV service? Or is
They
it
can choose to
automatically
go to-
bundled in there?
Comcast. That's about it.
Well, I'm saying, I mean, even within FiOS, do you have to carry that local TV service?
I think that's the base, right?
I believe so.
We have a contract with them that we're working on now.
But they're the ones that won't like extend it the normal amount.
Yeah, they're
right?
only extending it 5 years instead of
Well,
10.
the rumor is they're getting out of this business anyways. That's,
Right.
that's,
Which leaves them an
so
option.
their
But for those who
flexibility.
might be interested, for local, to continue bringing you quality service, at times we need to raise our rates. On or after 30 days from the date of this bill, the monthly rate for FiOS local TV service will increase to $25
From
I don't-
From
$12.99.
$12.99, yeah.
from $12.99. FiOS Quantum Gateway rate increase to continue providing you with quality service and product innovation on or after 30 days from the date of this bill. The monthly rate for your FiOS Quantum Gateway router will increase by $2 on top of that other. Set box, for your box for your TV, to continue to providing you with quality service and product innovation. At times, we need to raise our rates. On or after 30 days from the date of this bill, your monthly rate for FiOS set-top boxes will change to the following. The first 2 boxes on your account will be $12 each. I think it's currently $6. Boxes 3 to 5 will be $6 each. Any box in excess of 5 will be no charge. And then lastly, to continue providing you with quality service and product innovation, at times we need to raise our rates. On or after 30 days from the date of this bill, the monthly rate for your FiOS set-top boxes will change to the following. The first 2 boxes will $12. I think that's a duplicate. So $12 from $6, and then
25 from 12.99.
25 from $12.99. So add it up, and it's outrageous.
It is outrageous. There are options. Some people have taken advantage of them, right?
Cut the cord.
Problem is, they've got the FiOS.
Now that we're done kicking Verizon around, does anybody have any other comments about the correspondence items? A through E.
Very straightforward.
So there's no consent tonight, just the correspondence?
Except,
That's correct.
Okay. So all those in favor of the correspondence items? All right. Now it looks like we're going to have a public hearing for Comcast.
We need to wait till 7:15.
Oh, sorry.
yeah, somebody
Okay,
jumps in.
let me jump around a little bit. Let me jump around a little bit, see what we can come up with.
The Rockland Ave folks are in the room.
Okay, let's go on to Rockland Ave. This is petition.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hey, Warren.
Good. Should I read what I have, or do you?
Just introduce yourself so everyone at home knows who you are as well.
My name's Luke Sweeney. I live at 84 Rockland Ave with my wife Pamela and 2 young children.
Are you here for this too, sir?
I don't know. What, do you need me for anything else? I'm happy.
We'll stick you, we'll
I'm
have you
happy
stick
to
around.
hang
He needs you
around.
an awful lot, as you can tell.
Yeah, stick around.
Yeah, I'm happy to hang out.
I think we should give you a standing
We're talking
invite.
about, we have a citizens petition, okay, which is asking us to accept Rockland Ave, correct?
Correct. If I could just say,
All right, here it is. Okay. Go ahead.
Chairman DeSilva and members of the Board of Selectmen, Andrew, I know Aaron and Wayne and the fire chief, other town officials are here tonight. I just want to say thank you for putting the citizens petition on the agenda and having it open to discussion. It's certainly been a process. I'm new at this, and so trying to do my best to follow the protocol here, and whatever I can help answer you questions-wise, that's why I'm here.
Do you want to share for those who might not be available, just kind of the highlights of?
Sure.
Do you have access, does he have access to what the agenda's written up here as, like what we're actually talking about, the recommended action is not to accept anything tonight, it's to actually move
Well,
something
yeah.
for a future meeting,
I'll
right?
just tell them what.
Yeah,
I'll
just
read- I'll
if
read
anybody's
what
following, yeah.
I'll read what what that says, and what it says is, what our action would be tonight would be to move to place the citizens petition for inclusion on a future special annual town meeting warrant, provided it meets the requirements of such petitions as determined by the town clerk. So basically, what it's saying is that, you know, unless we decide that we have a couple of choices, we could block this, we could, you know, Board of Selectmen.
I don't think the charter allows.
So I'll just read the first paragraph, and then we'll just discuss it afterwards, just so we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So it says, in connection with the above referenced matter, which is it's just your citizens petition, you have required guidance as to the process to accept a private way in the town of Maynard. Below is a step-by-step explanation of the process the town must follow. However, please be advised that this memorandum assumes the following. 1, that the Board of Selectmen does not want to block this petition, and 2, that the town does not have a policy regarding the acceptance of private ways. Further, this memorandum is drafted in such a way that the process can be easily transferred to other roadway acceptances in the future. Following the process, I address issues concerning ownership of roadways in general and how the ownership of roadway will affect the town's acquisition and acceptance of the roadway as a public way. So, I mean, this is just the first step. I can't speak for anybody else, but there's, so I guess, does someone want to second the action before we get to that? Someone will need to second that action, which is to place it on the future special.
Well, if I could interject, Chairman.
Sure. Yep, go ahead.
Not knowing necessarily what the process is, I figured tonight would be more of a discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have I have a statement that I have a concern that was brought to my attention today. So if I could maybe read what I have,
Yeah,
that would be
please.
helpful. Tonight in attendance, I had my mother, who is an owner on Rockland as well as myself. I believe there's another resident here on Rockland, so 3 out of the 4 homeowners are here. So Rockland Ave is currently a private way. The petition is not asking for the town to better maintain, to improve, to overhaul, or to resurface, or to even pave the roadway. I know there's been discussion in town that I'm the guy who wants the road paved. The primary intention of this petition is to get the road accepted. We like having a dirt road. We just want it better maintained. For some reason, again, there's people around town saying that I want the road paved. I understand there's a lot of hurdles. It's a lot of money, and to have the road accepted and maybe receive some additional Chapter 90 funds to help maintain the road better, I don't know if any of you had the opportunity this spring to visit Rockland Ave, but it was a disaster. You could barely drive down the road. So again, the intention here is to accept the road, not to pave the road, just to be crystal clear. I appreciate all the efforts made by the DPW department. Aaron and his staff do a great job when they have the time to do it and they have the financial resources to do it. Again, I have nothing bad to say about the DPW other than, I wish we could do a little bit more timely maintenance and grading on the road. I understand that I've heard a couple different things about Chapter 90 and the formula that they use. I've heard estimates as low as, if you accept the road, you could get about $200 annually from that road. I've heard estimates as high as $3,000 plus. I don't know where it is. I don't know how the formula all works. I'm just saying there's a wide range there, and I think any money that the town can receive from the state to do improvements, I don't think we should shy away from that, especially, if grading the road is $5,000 a pop and you can get up to $3,000, it's essentially offsetting the cost to do the work. It might be oversimplifying the equation there, but that's really the intention here is, to work with the town to see if we can get more revenue to help maintain the road a little bit better. I've been on the road living on the road since 2004. My family's actually owned that piece of land since 1986. The town has had majority ownership of the road since 1993 when they took over the abandoned property at the front of the road. And with that, I think you guys received, it was a letter from the board or from the town manager at the time saying there was intention by the town to do timely grading and maintenance. 2018 spring was the worst condition the road has ever been in. So I just can't state it more that my intention here isn't to get the road paved. It's to receive maybe some more funds via Chapter 90 to help with the costs in maintaining, because it does need timely maintenance and grading work. There's over 300, even though there's just 4 homes on the road. This is the other thing I've heard is there's only 4 homes. Why are we going to spend money on that road? Well, there's 350 Maynard children who use the soccer field. It's a lot of kids from Maynard, and what I saw this spring was cars left and right, up and down the road, coming and going. I mean, it wasn't a road, it was an obstacle course. And when you have Maynard children there, and if you need to get a fire truck, I've talked to the chief about it, I've talked to the police chief, if you had to get a fire truck down there with cars literally all over the road in an emergency situation, what does that look like? So again, it has more to do with maintenance than paving for accepting the road. There's 4 homeowners, but the Rockland wells are down there. The Rockland water treatment facility plant's down there. And to get access to that, the town has to maintain the road. So my feeling is if you're already obligated to maintain the road from an emergency standpoint to get to the houses at the end, if you're already obligated or for your self-interest to have access to the wells, to the treatment plant, and you're paying for that, why not have the state come in and recoup some of those costs? I mean, it's just sort of on my mind after seeing the spring and being like, what can we do here to improve the situation? If not accepting the road is the way to go and just having something in writing saying we're going to do better maintaining the road, well, let's go that path. But if accepting the road is what it takes to bring money in, to get the road in a good shape, then that's why I'm going this route. It has nothing to do about, improving my own situation. It's really about what we can do as a town to make sure that road is in good shape.
Can I ask a question, Chris? So, first of all, Mr. Sweeney, thank you for all the work that you've done on this across the board, and having seen the correspondence and the questions and the diligence that you and the other residents of Rockland Ave have done through this. I know that the process is not an easy one, so I very much appreciate, all the work that you have done for that. My question is actually less for you and a little bit more for Aaron, and to the extent, Sarah, that you can speak on behalf of the memo that came in from some of your colleagues on this. It's more about, it's not about Rockland itself, but about the process for acceptance of roads in the town. Because my question here is, we have a number of different byways and roads throughout the town that either they have been, whether I will preface my statement by saying it's sort of what I've picked up in conversations with people over time, as opposed to facts that I have at my fingertips. But either, communities or planned developments that have been built with the understanding that the developer is going to maintain and take care of that roadway. Different private roads that were equally dirt roads until the recent past, et cetera, and then they sort of become public roads. So, and in the letter from town council, they talk about the fact that we seem to not have a process through which we determine how to accept road, how to do this on the first part. And I guess, Aaron, my other piece of this is like how you within DPW factor in these different kind of ownership statuses or class when it comes to figuring out what falls on the town to maintain and what doesn't. And I think just as we, under the category of an assumption that we would, if we assume that the petition goes forward for vote at a special town meeting or an annual town meeting, I would want, at the time of discussion of the warrant article, to have everything aligned in terms of explaining to citizens and having our ducks in a row as a town about what this means and how we go forward in doing it, and any costs and process, et cetera. Because I know that we still have challenges on some streets in the town where it wasn't a street, it became it was a dirt road, it becomes a paved road. There's discrepancies over where the actual property line on that road would be because the telephone poles got put in here, but those trees are the town's trees. Maybe you've been on my street, Aaron, and heard this question before. So I just would want to make sure that as we were kind of going through this, because you've outlined in the attorney's memo to the board, there's a process of surveying it, there's a process of figuring out who the abutters are, there's a process of kind of really locking that down and knowing, my thought is that we need to go into this ask with the thought of cleaning that entire process up so that we actually have an inventory of, okay, what are the other streets in town, within town, that might fall under this category? How does that kind of look going forward as we think about it? So I don't know if that was a lot.
No, I get it. So a lot of the process is statutorily prescribed.
Mm-hmm.
If the town wants to accept a street, petition can be brought forth by citizens and move forward that way. It involves obviously an evaluation by DPW, a determination by the Board of Selectmen that they do in fact want to lay out the street as a public way before it gets to the point where town meeting says, yes, we'd like to accept this, and then allow the Board of Selectmen to acquire a fee interest or an easement interest in the underlying street that abuts the properties. I know that a few years ago, we had here 2 phases of street acceptances that you guys were working on, and we got through phase 1, and I assume Aaron can probably update me, at the very least, where you are on phase 2. So there has been a certain analysis done, particularly of old developments where the developer went bankrupt, didn't finish, its obligations with respect to finishing the street, or disappeared and was never around to convey the interest in the street to the town, which is the easiest way of solving all the problems.
If I could interject.
Yeah.
The developer happened to be my father.
Okay.
The 2 houses at the end of Rockland Ave on paved road, they went through the A&R process, so they weren't a subdivision where, I'm not exactly sure what the process is, where I do know that he paved the section of road that he owned. That's why when you drive down Rockland, it's dirt, 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 and then pavement on a dead-end road. So to speak on his behalf, I think he tried to do everything that the town asked him in order to get those 2 homes built, including a lot of off-site work on the road. I think the road was about 12 feet wide when he acquired the land, and it's about 30 to 35 feet wide now. I know the culvert needed a lot of work, and he provided the machinery, the engineering, and the personnel to help make that culvert get repaired, as well as lay all the water lines from those homes to the town water line, which is at Acton Street. So I know he did a considerable amount of work off-site, as well as build those two homes as well. I'm not sure if his intention was ever to have the road accepted. He's been passed now since 2009. Those homes were built in 2001. So to revisit the intentions of a builder,
Well, did he create the road, though?
no, the road,
Right, so
the
it's a
road
di-
was existing.
Yeah, so it's a different situation. You know, when there's a subdivision and the developer comes to the town and says, I'm going to make, 100 lots, here are where I want the streets to be.
Right.
As part of the permitting process, the town says, well, if you're going to make all these roads, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and at the end of the process, you're going to give it to us, so we don't have to go through all of this rigmarole for the town to accept it.
Right,
So in your situation, it's different.
right.
Yeah,
I
it's a
understand.
little bit different, and that's one of the elements of
That's
the
what I'm trying to
process
clarify,
is
yeah.
is identifying the ownership, identifying the history of the way. So you have another street in town where it's been around since 18 whenever, but some people think it's private, some people think it's public, and nobody agrees because there aren't any records. It's common all across the Commonwealth. I mean, this is just par for the course for towns.
So all we really need to do tonight is just decide that, we're gonna approve or disapprove placement of this petition on inclusion on a future special or annual town meeting. And then, all the requirements have to fall in place, and we have to just follow the process. So,
I have one other concern. It was sort of brought to my attention very recently. I understand there's a project, the 124 Acton Street project. And my concern is, if Rockland Avenue is accepted, does it change, will it make it easier to gain entrance or egress off of Rockland to that project, if it's accepted or not accepted?
we don't have any project in front of us, so we can't, there's nothing like, I don't know what you're.
No,
I don't know what it is. Is that what that other piece of property on?
I think he's referring to at a April meeting, when the
Queen
owners of
property.
124 Acton came in and were talking about the swap.
Property.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they haven't made a proposal, they were here, we asked them to go back and get some information, we haven't seen them since.
Crickets.
One thing, just from a charter standpoint, I don't believe a citizen's petition, unless it has 100 signatures, can get onto a special town meeting. It only requires 10 signatures to become on a annual town meeting. So that's just something to be aware of. And then if you can get a special, there's another thing, that you have your own special town meeting, that requires 200 signatures or something else.
So, Mr. Gavin, the petition came in. It comes to the board to be moved to accept, not endorse, but to accept the process. The town clerk then certifies that it's a legitimate in terms of to form, including their verifying signatures. There are a lot of signatures, and if there are enough for a special town meeting and one is scheduled, it would be appropriate for that. If there's only enough for an annual, then next May would be the earliest it would be heard. And that would give us enough time for the things that Attorney Bellino outlined about title, the proper layout, the title work, and so on.
The other comment I wanted to make, and I know we have to move on because we're late for our hearing. I am concerned about the public safety aspect of this. But I'm also concerned from perspective of my understanding, and Aaron, you can address this. My understanding is that we have sort of a cherry pick list of streets that are currently unaccepted that we were going to be knocking off as we went. Was Rockland Ave on that list?
That's correct. So we have 21 unaccepted roadways in the town of Maynard. We have 19 private ways as well. We prioritize those and have recommendations
Right.
from our engineer as to whether or not we're going to accept those or to accept those. One of the biggest concerns is not only are you accepting the road, and legal counsel can elaborate, but you're accepting the utilities that are underground as well, right? So like water and sewer and anything that might have been installed by a developer that may or may not have ever been inspected by anyone. You're accepting the liability for those. You could have a sewer that's in a poor condition that services 20 houses on the street, and now not only are you accepting the road and taking ownership of the road, you're taking ownership of that sewer underneath, so it's more than just the roadway condition and maintenance of the
Good.
road. And to answer the question earlier about maintenance and how do we handle roads, so technically, the town of Maynard, we do maintain these roads even though they're unaccepted and unmaintained, just because we do receive complaints. If we were to stop paving those 40 roads that I had mentioned, or stop plowing those 40 roads and stop cold patching them in the springtime and stopped doing any maintenance, fixing water leaks, sewer clogs, or anything like that, we'd be inundated with complaints. So we do maintain those. We do spend town money every year on these roads, just because it's been historical kind of past practice. That's something that, that we, as we go through this process, should really look at. We're not paving the roads or unaccepted streets until they're approved by the town. But there's a lot of time and effort spent on these roads. We just graded Rockland Avenue this spring. It cost $6,000. I don't have a grader. We brought in a contracted company and we graded it. It took 2 days, 2.5 days. And previous to that, it's been DPW crews that have gone out there with material or gone out there with our loader or a belly scraper plow on one of our dump trucks and tried to maintain it as best we can. But we don't have $6,000 built in the budget. My highway maintenance budget alone is like $25,000 a year for all the roads, just for regular preventative reactive maintenance. So it's a big chunk.
What's our legal obligation, especially as you mentioned public safety, chief? Is there anything that we are required as a town to do anything to any of these private ways?
We've driven down there in its worst condition, and we can make it down. With that being said, it's not the greatest thing in the world to drive a $500 million truck down a road like that. However, we can do it. And there is a delay, but it's not a significant delay. So I would say the public safety is not the main reason to accept it or not accept it.
Okay. So we have to get, so we have a motion to, place this on a list for inclusion on a future town meeting or special town meeting. We made a motion, unless anyone has any further discussion. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, so, the town clerk will get this filed tomorrow, that has the signatures. She'll approve the signatures and accept them and follow the process, and just follow the process and see where it goes.
I noticed a lot of out-of-town people have signed that petition, so
I believe there was
those count in the 100 for special town meetings, so.
I believe it was 145 town of Maynard and roughly 35 family and friends.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna have a public hearing. Yeah, a public hearing is the Comcast public hearing. So I'll read the public hearing notice, and then we'll start the hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 166, that a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, June 26, 2018, at 7:15 p.m. in the Michael J. Giannotis Meeting Room of the Maynard Town Building. The petitioning plan is being presented by the Comcast for the purpose of obtaining a grant petition with permission to construct in a location for such a line of conduits and manholes with necessary wires and cables therein. Said conduits and manholes to be located substantially on the attached plan dated May 24th, 2018 on Nason Street, rear, Maynard. The public is welcome to attend. A copy of this notice is filed with the town clerk and the board of selectmen. So now this hearing is open.
Good evening, Dave Llewellyn, Comcast. We have a request to provide the Comcast service to number 16 Nason Street. From the rear of Nason Street, we're going to be starting at the existing utility pole with no tag NT, excavating to place one 3-inch PVC conduit, 89 feet plus or minus to a proposed 3x3 manhole. From the proposed manhole, the conduit installation will continue on to private property to service number 16 Nason Street.
Who is number 16 Nason Street?
Bill, what's your address?
14, that's the old CVS.
The old CVS
The old
building?
CVS is, okay.
Which is
Video signal?
video signals, is that what it is? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, it's a public hearing. Anybody have any comments?
How long will that work take?
Depending upon the digging, probably take about a week, 5 days, weather permitting.
Do you think it'll take up, as a result of digging, we'll lose some parking back there too?
I'm sorry?
Will we lose parking back there while it's ongoing, while you're digging?
I don't think there's really any parking spaces per se where the proposed installation is. If there is, the trench will be excavated, the conduit will be put in, it'll be backfilled every day, at the end of every day, so there'll be really no open
Okay.
trenches or anything, so really there wouldn't be any, if a parking space was taken, it would be only for a short period of time, backfilled, and then a car would be able to park there.
Thank you.
So my question is about, two questions, actually. One, the repair of the trenches later, but the second is traffic control? Because this runs from basically the Dunn Oil side, through the rail trail, through the entire width of the parking lot. So it's going to sever the parking lot. And so what is the traffic control going to be for that week? Are everybody trying to cut through from CVS going to know that they shouldn't turn off the road because they're going to hit a dead end because there's construction? Where's the traffic control plan?
We can provide a traffic control plan, but there will be basically construction signs set up, and travel will be able to go in and out of the parking lot. Like I said, the trench will not be opened and left open, so it'll be backfilled at the end of the day, so traffic will be able to flow in and out.
Are you familiar with the diagram that's attached to it?
Yes.
Could you do me a favor? Could you come up, just approach real quick and just enlighten me as to where exactly the construction's gonna be?
Oh, so you don't have this construction plan?
No, I have a diagram of the property. It's highlighted in colors, but there's no key code telling me what the colors mean.
Okay, so this was the construction plan we submitted. So here's the utility pole. We're gonna be coming across and then running down and then going over, and this is the subway. This is where the manhole's gonna go.
Okay. So this is in between
In between the two
the
buildings there.
outdoor store and
Yeah.
the video sales
Subway.
place? So Subway's in the back, right?
Well, yeah, this is in the rear parking lot. This is the municipal parking lot
So
in
it's
the
this
rear.
parking lot area here that they own, that's their own parking lot?
Yeah, but I
anyways.
think that the parking spaces are more in this area here.
Okay. Oh, okay, here's the existing Subway building.
Yep.
All right. All right, so it's not gonna actually interrupt traffic flow?
It shouldn't only here, but we'll divert the traffic to go around, and then when we do this section here, this will be open. When we finish this section here, this will be open. So traffic will be able to flow in and out and around.
All right.
I'm
Just
not sure
from
about that.
looking at this scheme, it looked like that whole area was under construction, which would have blocked that
This is the
whole.
plan we
Okay,
submitted.
thank you, appreciate that.
I'm a little confused. Aren't they laying a conduit trench across? I understand the manhole area is segregated, but
Yeah.
there's a conduit trench.
I'm assuming they're gonna lay
Cross all the
something
way,
over the
right?
trench so traffic flows at one time, right, after you?
Half the trench will be done at a time, so they'll excavate 20, 30 feet. They'll excavate, they'll put the pipe in, they'll backfill, and they'll patch it, and then they'll move on to the next section. So it'll be open for traffic to flow,
One lane at a time.
one lane at a time.
Well, I would caution there have to be a very good traffic control plan. It can't be just a cop sitting there in the middle of the parking lot because it's too late for people to have already made the call because they've turned in through CVS and stuff. But you might want to double check your work area because you said you're doing 20 or so feet at a time.
Yep.
It's only like 20.
Put some signs.
It's a
5
total of
feet wide.
89, it's a total of 89 feet to the manhole, so I mean, it's gonna go pretty quick depending upon the digging and what they run into.
Yes, I'm just worried about the cross through the drive area. And if
Understood,
you
yep.
have to do 20 feet of that, there really wouldn't be much left for anybody to go around.
Well, you're in Maynard, the big problem is gonna be you impeding the bike path,
Yep.
because then you're in a lot of trouble.
So that's my second question. The shiny new bike path is going to get cut through it. So who is the one that blesses the patch? And is there follow-up later when that patch sinks and then needs to be touched up 6 months from now?
Yes, sir.
So this, after, if the board does approve this project, it still has to go through the street opening permit process, which is through my department. That's when we're gonna have discussions, with Comcast, Xfinity about the traffic control plan details, and also what's gonna be allowed to be, excavated and not. We're not gonna allow them to excavate the new rail trail. We've already had that discussion.
Right.
They're gonna have the directional drill underneath that path if they wanna do that. And then also the assuming like a 2-foot wide trench.
Typically,
So let
yes.
that settle over the winter time, and then they'll come back and repave a larger area so that it's finished and it's in good condition.
So what did you say, Aaron, about the rail trail? That they're going to have to go around it?
They'll no longer
Directional
they won't
drill.
be able to cut a trench through the rail trail, they'll have to go under
They'll
it.
directionally drill.
Got it, okay.
We'd also
I have the dumbest question.
No such thing.
Is this so that somebody can get Comcast?
Correct. Yes.
You can't do it from a wire? Like when you get Comcast at your house, they don't.
Great, that's not a dumb question, that's a
you get
great question.
Trench.
Paula Copley.
Paula Copley, resident. Concerned. So I'm sitting here like thinking, am I getting this right? This is also a store can get Comcast at
correct.
Xfinity?
Yes. Yep.
Is this usual?
I'm shocked, yes.
For us to do an underground trench to a building, yes.
Yeah.
And tear up a road and for a week and destroy
Typically,
our,
yes.
If I want to change service in
Potential.
my house, they dig it up. Like if I want to,
hook it up to a wire on.
no, mine's underground, so if I want to get FiOS instead of Xfinity, they
They
put it
come
in-
and dig up,
put it, yeah.
okay? Everybody know that?
But you have
Um,
Xfinity now, I'm pretty sure, right?
My
Which comes through.
I have
second
Comcast, yeah.
question,
But if I wanted to get something different, they would dig it.
will this interfere at all in power, you touching power that's under there?
Nope, before the contractor starts, they will call 811, the dig safe number, and all the utilities will come out and mark.
Okay, thank you. I won't be getting Comcast anytime soon. No offense.
Does seem a little heavy-handed that you
Did you
brought it
look,
up,
I don't know,
actually,
did you look at the Verizon price
I have
increases?
Verizon, I probably shouldn't say that. Yeah, I might have to-
$12.99 and $25. Yeah.
I should take that back.
So in all seriousness, Aaron, is this normal? I mean, for,
Yeah, this happens every day in the town of Maynard, so I think typically the reasons before this group is because Xfinity Comcast doesn't already have an easement in this area. So once this is granted, they can come back 5 years later from now and just pull a permit downstairs at DPW and excavate and do any work that they need. This was clarified with Sarah a couple weeks ago, because like Eversource or any other underground utility is doing work in town, it's because they've already had granted easement and access to the underground utilities to lay it previously, and they're able to maintain them moving forward. So this is a new installation, that's why it's kind of before the board.
is it serve more than one business? Listen, I'm not picking on this business, but I mean, would you
It
tearing up?
potentially will, but it will require easements from the other property owners there.
So, another question, let's say Subway now wants
I believe
Xfinity.
Subway already has the service.
Okay, or the outdoor store. Is there now more digging, or can they hook into what you've already
So
dug
once
up?
we come from that manhole, any of the other businesses, the other side of that manhole on private property, we would secure an easement from them and do an underground trench to them, but it would all be on private property.
So you do redig again, or you
We
don't?
do, but it would be on private property.
Not public, it wouldn't be,
They don't need the board's approval.
Oh, okay, this is because it's public, okay. Thank
and
you.
because they haven't done this process.
So once we grant them this, then we have no recourse to decide we don't want anybody to tear anything up anymore, is what you just said, right?
The
Well,
permit
yeah,
process.
Yeah, through the DPW office.
Yeah,
The board doesn't see it, it's.
yeah.
it's a-
That's what I'm saying, us, it's
Through the permit.
absent
We're
from us,
only
right?
approving the piece that traverses public land. We're not approving anything else, so. That's what people want to do on their own property, it's their business.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with their property, I'm concerned with the,
But we have, we have the safety net is Aaron's open hole, what do you call it, open trench, what do you call it?
Street opening permits.
Street opening permit, so that's, that's,
Yeah, that's the town's,
Yeah.
security, that's our inspection process, we can make them come back, redo it, bring it up to standards, we set specifications for this type of work.
okay.
I don't want to penalize Comcast for actually putting stuff on the ground.
Question.
We've been complaining for years of wires everywhere, right? So now, yeah.
Okay, come on up, come on up.
Mike Elwell, I'm somewhat in your field. Why wouldn't they put in spare raceways of any kind, so you didn't have to dig again?
Well, this conduit going to that building will feed multiple buildings, so there really isn't a need to put in any additional conduit, because once we get to that manhole, it's going to branch off.
And there's, just in those troubled areas, would it be worth that while to put in anything spare ductwork in there?
Not in this case, it's going to be one 3-inch conduit, so it's not going to be, it's going to have plenty of capacity there for any future needs.
And they're able to intermingle with each other, these different companies, voltages, anything like that?
There is no voltage in the coax. Well, there is voltage in the coax, there's no voltage in the
Well,
fiber
I
optic.
can't go into like, I'm an electrician, I can't go into that same raceway, you know? So we do spares all the time.
Yeah, but that's more for power, is that what
Yeah,
you do?
but Chairman, you had said if you change providers, that they're gonna dig your trench. We pull wire out all the time, pull new ones in, new providers.
I'm not, I'm just telling you what the guy told me one time.
Oh, I'd shoot him, pull my lawn up again.
I'm not getting into that, I'm not.
We throw a spare in, that's all my thoughts were.
He's not changing
Listen,
anyway.
I'm not a cable guy, I just kinda wanna watch TV. When the guy came by, he said, we could dig a new trench right through there, we call it dig safe. So
It
whatever.
helps us underground, so you're one step ahead. It must probably be a pretty nice house.
Yeah,
That's what they call dig safe.
fantastic.
That was all, I just thought that maybe
The chairman of the board.
a spare raceway might help out future work, that's all.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elwell.
All right, so, I don't know, I'll make a motion that we move to grant Comcast request to install new conduit as proposed.
Second.
Second, Mr. Gavin, any further conversation? Any conversation from anybody in the room? Okay. So now at 7:42, I'm going to close the public hearing for Comcast. And I'm going to vote, and all those in favor of,
Does this
The motion?
require a roll call because it's a
No.
public hearing, no?
no, just, no. This says, oh, so all those in favor? And then, yeah, okay.
Please make it painless.
That, sir, please. Thank you very much. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Now we're on to the ADA.
Can I go to Amy? Do we want to talk about Concom?
I can just tell them what you said.
Okay.
It's benign.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Excuse me. So, Mr. Chairman, on the ADA transition plan, this is a process that started about a year ago when we received a grant to rewrite our transition plan that's about 25 years old. We've been through that process, and it needs to go through an adoption with the board. Before that happens, the town would like the board to read it. We were soliciting public input, staff input, so there's a few more steps. This is basically sort of a part of those next steps is to have you take a look at this. In the near future, a group of people will be presented for appointment to the ADA Commission. According to our charter, right now it's a dormant committee.
Good night.
And then, once that happens, we'd like the board to then endorse this plan. It then goes to the state, and then we start enacting it. And this whole process is done in part, obviously, we want to be ADA compliant, but also because we have an up-to-date transition plan, we're eligible for construction grants from the state to help us with the implementation.
So the language is this, does this come from the state, or do we create this language?
It's a little bit of both. A staff member and the consultant went through the state process. A lot of it's prescribed, but as you go through the details, there's specific stuff for the town of Maynard. If you look at our old one, it references things about the old high school and the Roosevelt before it was the library. You know, it was written in the early 90s. So we had a very different transition plan 25 years ago than we need for the next, say, 10 years or 12 years.
Okay, so earlier, Mr. Gavin pointed out to me one particular line that says, public meetings should be planned and publicized as early as possible. Ideally, at least 21 calendar days, but no less than 14 days in advance.
This is not a public meeting. This is, the board often is looking for a chance to review documents before they're being asked to vote on them. This is the first time we've shown this to you in the format it's in. We're going to be soliciting public input. We've already asked staff for input, and we'll bring a final sort of vetted document for that process sometime in the future, midsummer, let's say,
I think you misunderstood the point.
perhaps.
In the draft, on page 14, I'm assuming that these are regulations that we are saying that in order to accommodate, and believe me, I'm all for public access for handicapped individuals and everything else. It has nothing to do with that. About the third bullet down, This is all about how to make it easier to notify and to have access to public meetings by people with disabilities.
Individuals, yeah.
And about the third paragraph down, it says, public meetings should be planned and publicized as early as possible. So they're saying, okay, Maynard, plan and publicize your meetings as early as possible. And it says, ideally, at least 21 calendar days, but no less than 14 days in advance. And the reason that they're saying this is so people can ask for accommodations to meetings that they need to get to. That's within the context of what this is all about. But I don't think we want to be drafting or putting in codifying that our meetings should be posted 21 days.
2 to 3 weeks in advance, right?
Exactly.
Understood.
When we can't even get a group of, hardworking people to get together in a week because their calendars can't.
I will get clarification on that. It's possible it should say public hearing, which would require at least 14 days. But I will get clarification on that.
Okay.
It's exactly why we want to do these reviews, right? To find these types of gaps. Section 3.
It's on page 14.
Yes, thank you. So as we solicit further input, we're going to create an addendum of the changes as opposed to just redlining the whole thing, because we aren't necessarily going to adapt every suggestion that someone gives us. Adopt every suggestion. And then we would bring that forward as a final document for acceptance.
Okay. Hey, under general considerations, it says public meeting planners on that same page. Public meeting planners shall identify at least one person who is responsible for making sure that the public meeting is accessible for all attendees. Who in this scenario is going to be that person or that role, or is it one person, or is it a certain person in each group or meeting, or how does that work? Or anybody think about that? Or
So I can look into that further as well. I believe part of that is because many buildings are not publicly accessible, and so accommodations need to get made. All of our buildings that have public meetings, like this building, are accessible, and so it sort of makes that condition unnecessary. If we were to have a public meeting, for instance, at one of our water plants, it might be an issue. So I will get clarification on that. I'm not the person who did the drafting of this, so
One of the things that was in here, and this is really more a question, is it talked about if somebody, say, for example, is deaf or hard of hearing, that the town needs to, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I thought I read it, that the town needs to make accommodations to assist that person to be in a position where they can be here at the meeting.
that's right.
And they even, I think it talked about getting headphones or, I don't know what that it was talking about. But does that mean that and I know that this isn't mandated, but theoretically we should get a signer to be here for a public hearing if somebody calls and says, I'm deaf and I need to be at this public hearing? And is it mandated?
So what the law says is that we have to provide accommodation, but we have
Reasonable
wide swath in interpreting what an accommodation, an appropriate one is. Oftentimes you see sign language interpreters at, say, a town meeting where you have a volume of people where that makes the most sense, the size of a room. In a facility like this, we might come up with a different accommodation. But we are obligated by law to work with those individuals that identify themselves to provide an accommodation.
And just a question as we're reviewing this, the text, is there any special attention to be paid to the text that's in red, or are those the only changes, or is that just a...
So those are some of the incomplete things in the summary that's in the board docs.
Okay.
It mentions some of this, but the original intention was to have an employee dedicated to this, and that person had gone through training. That employee no longer works for us.
Gotcha.
So rather than just automatically assign somebody else, we're not quite done with the process, so we're holding that out until we know who we're going to assign, and I've put it in red there so we don't forget to update it when it is final.
I'm just thinking if I want to make sure I have it cemented, if the document as I'm reviewing it gets separated from the board docs notes. So,
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Andrew, as you look at this document, I have a question on page 20, 21, and 22, which is a checklist for meeting planners. Do you know if, when we look at this checklist, does that suggest those 3 pages suggest that those things are all required of a meeting?
No, and it's, that's straight from the state guidelines, which are probably straight from the federal guidelines. I believe they're to be all-encompassing, so they're probably looking at a multitude of different types of facilities, not all of which would apply to the town of Maynard.
Okay,
And if
so-
that's the case, we could certainly scale it back a little bit.
So we could, like, for instance, has the meeting been publicized in required foreign languages and ethnic newspapers for the relevant population in the community where the meeting is to be held? I don't know that we've ever put it anywhere but the Beacon.
That's right. And then, like in the South Shore of
I don't know,
Massachusetts,
would we be required to if we accepted it as is?
I don't know the answer to that, but that is part of the vetting process here.
Okay.
On the South Shore of Massachusetts, a lot of these things are done with Portuguese language
Yeah.
as an alternate because there's a large Portuguese-speaking population in that part of Massachusetts. It's that sort of thing where it's a local condition, so you accommodate it.
Okay.
We may not have to do that in this community.
All right, just seemed like a pretty onerous checklist. To say the least. All right, so.
I think in terms of the vetting, if we make the checklist this big,
Yeah.
and then we think about all the possibilities and how to best accommodate it here,
Right.
if we just do the things that are obvious to us, we might leave several important things off that list.
Okay. So what is our next step to?
Please continue to review it as you've started to tonight, and we will bring back feedback from staff and from the public to an even better document along the way of bringing in the people that several have already agreed to ask to be appointed to the committee. That goes through this process with you as well in a few weeks. And then when we feel like the document's ready, we'll ask you to adopt it, and then it goes to the state for final approval.
We did have a committee back when it first became an issue. It was required, and we named a committee, and then it sort of fell apart.
There's members of the committee had appointments through 2015, but in the time I've been here since 2013, 2014, it's been dormant.
It looks like this process started in 1993.
Yeah, we had a full committee at one point.
I'm sure for
In the
most of
last
that
10
time
years.
there was, because when the law first came in 91 or 92, this was happening everywhere. And now we're most of the way there. Our buildings are accessible. We've made the accommodations that are obviously needed. And now right now a lot of this is going to be outdoor space, curb cuts on walkways, those sorts of things, because our buildings are mostly up to code.
Okay. So now we're on to the RFP development work group for the Coolidge reuse.
That's correct. And in the board docs, if you bear with me, I can just read this paragraph because I think it summarizes it better than I can recall it. But immediately after our town meeting, when the warrant article for the Coolidge School sale failed, I met with some townspeople and was asked to consider creating a work group to move this process forward. I spoke to the chairman about this in May, and he agreed that at some point later in the spring would be appropriate, and so it got bounced into this agenda. 3 people have already expressed interest in this. The woman who spoke at town meeting, our DPW director, and Jack McKean from the Historical Society has indicated that either himself or a Historical Society member or someone from the Coolidge School reuse task force from several years ago would step forward. He was looking to not be that person, but he said that he would step forward if none others did. And so I'm making a recommendation in there that the board consider allowing this appointment to happen in a few months down the road, have them come back with the type of plan that was being discussed at town meeting as what do we really want to do with the building, we meaning the community.
So now we got to solicit volunteers for two new committees, the ADA and this.
So as we're thinking, I think it's a great idea. I'm happy to see this moving forward because I think as one of the things that we talked about when this warrant article came up in town meeting, came up from the floor and sort of our own observations coming out of town meeting was that, we did not want to find ourselves again in a situation where we allow time to pass on an issue that in some ways, we had the results of the reuse committee recommendations for how long
3
kind of
years.
piece. Yeah. So I'm very happy to see this move forward. I think we should capitalize on the interest and the intent with the idea of hopefully being able for the board as they look ahead to town meeting schedules for the next coming months and year to try and have another revised warrant article considered by the town. My thoughts with respect to the committee, I would want to have an inclusion in there as well. I appreciate the note about a town member who has a town staff member with experience writing RFPs. My other note would be somebody who has experience, whether it would be from the planning board or whether it would be, I don't know how we would kind of set to vet the requirement, but somebody who can come to the table as well with an eye to thinking about through the eyes of potential developers, right? So I think, I would want my own personal hope through this process would be, and I think, as we've talked about what the board had envisioned and the intent behind the warrant article was to be able to initiate an open process, as open as possible, in order to solicit the widest breadth of possibilities from potential interested developers in order to then determine a best path forward for the property, i.e. letting developers kind of come back to the table to us to kind of talk through their strategies and uses with recognizing a set of preferences that the town had for, the meaning of the building, love of the property, meaning of the property to the town, et cetera. So I guess I'm just thinking that I would want somehow the committee to be formed in such a way that point of view continues to be part of it, so that there's a way of thinking, okay, at the end of the day, we're soliciting an RFP that will go out to developers of all different backgrounds and stripes. So how do we not necessarily be overly prescriptive in the RFP process in order to solicit that? So I don't know how I would distill that into a desired qualification list for a candidate, but...
If I'm hearing you correctly, you're hoping that someone with a creative development background might serve on the committee, and hopefully it wouldn't be somebody who would then be ineligible or, steering it in one direction so that they could then buy the property. But
yeah, I mean, ideally, it would be nice if it was somebody
solicit it.
who was a developer background who could perhaps provide a level of subject matter expertise to say, hey, as you're thinking about this. So I don't know whether that would mean that we might solicit, how we would do that, whether that be somebody who is a town resident, if there's a possibility of bringing somebody in who might have done a similar project in a surrounding community who could provide advice to this committee. But yeah, something along those lines.
I'm sure we can find someone. Unexpectedly, we had an electrician here tonight to help us along with some things, and these things do happen, and we'll get the word out looking for more if the board is approving of this.
Yes.
Just one suggestion, you have Wayne from VHB who certainly talks to a lot of developers. He's not a developer, but he certainly would bring in that perspective as well as the planning board, as well as sort of the engineering. So I'm just throwing that out as a potential if you were wanting to get that perspective in.
If you want to spend more time with your wife, you can volunteer yourself, because she'll be on the committee.
All right, so we have to just, that's just a an issue to create that committee and get that moving, I guess.
So would the next step be coming back with a proposal of what that committee would look like, or how
So,
would we go forward?
Yeah, I mean, I see this as being somewhat of an informal group. The board can empower the TA to create a working group and set a deadlines, or the board can say, we want to appoint the candidates and still have a time limit on it or not. They put a time limit on the Coolidge School Task Force Reuse Committee. I believe they had about 5 months to do their business. So something like that was dictated by the board, or it could just be town administration go out, get some sort of input the way we've been discussing, and come back with some input.
My suggestion would be, my preliminary thought on it would be, I think, some sort of time limit, because if you don't have a deadline to work against, sometimes that can be a restriction, especially if we want to move the topic forward. My only other thought would be whether or not we want to kind of have some sort of a point of view from the board that would inform the work of the committee. but I don't
I mean, a
necessarily.
board member on the committee?
No, not necessarily, but more like a statement from the board to the.
I agree with that, because we've had committees too often that go off the ranch, and suddenly they're working on something that's far afield from what we really asked them to look at.
So there's a suggested expectation in the public content section. It's one sentence, and you can, certainly add to or delete from that recommended scope.
Yeah, well, we can talk about it again another time, but it just seems to me that we might want to have where it is, I wouldn't say it was contentious, but where it was an issue that so many people were so impassioned about, that, we're talking about a scope for an RFP, and then we're going to have another committee to write the RFP?
No.
So is this, do you envision this group writing the RFP?
No, if a committee were to bring forth a scope, let's say a one-page document with 7 or 8 points of interest, any experienced writer of 30B, appropriate requests for quotations, requests for proposals, and so on, would be able to turn that into a proper document.
So what the process I would imagine would be that this committee would be formed. We would set a deadline for this committee to come back with a one-page or whatever it looks like set of documents. That would then, my thought would be that would then get turned into a draft warrant article that potentially, because we would still have to get through, the question would be, this is why we wanted the warrant article the last time, was to be able to have permission from the town to pursue options. Would this become the foundation documents for that type of a
It
warrant
would,
article?
and for all intents and purposes, an RFP is, there's a lot of sort of definitions there, but the scope of service or the scope of work is the meat of it. So if the scope defines this is what we're trying to accomplish, the vast majority of what follows is legal boilerplate type stuff, certain rules and regulations that have to be followed. So if we have a well-defined scope, we don't actually need to write the RFP before we get to the warrant article.
Correct, yeah. It'd be the
It'll
scope, the
flow
warrant
from it
article. The
quickly.
warrant article would then allow the RFP process to be drafted and move forward.
I think you'd want to be clear with your terms, though. Scope is something that a developer is going to actually write the work he's going to deliver. We want to nail down the requirements of what that group is thinking.
Correct.
Not so much the scope of
Yeah,
anything, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure the committee knows that, so they're not defining a scope when.
So forgive my lack of precision of terminology. I was using it in a general term, but I think this goes back to my previous point of having the board draft a direction to the committee of what our expectations are of them and what we want them to see and how, and so they're informed of what that process would be too. So then they become advocates for the warrant article to get it passed.
I'm hearing that there's a timeliness interest, and I would be happy to put forth some more ideas about that expectation. The board can customize it to their needs. In the meantime, should I solicit more interest in the committee, or should I wait?
No, we should just move forward.
I think start.
We move forward. It's not going to be an immediate process, but.
Perhaps in July that it
Yeah,
gets nailed down.
And in the interim, we'll offer,
Yep.
as a departing board member, I'll offer potential inputs into the draft direction document.
Be a nice investment property for someone.
Should definitely move forward before we have to start charging kids for sledding.
We get the sound administrator's
To make
report
up our
is in the
costs.
body of the detailed agenda. We met last week and it's a quick turnaround.
That's correct.
Anybody have any questions about the TA report?
And there's one thing I'd like to bring up that's not on there. I mentioned it to the chairman before the meeting. We are looking to replace our assistant town planner and conservation agent, the position that was vacated in April. We've been working with the CONSCOM, the planning office, and have vetted about 35 candidates. The Conservation Commission is doing their final interviews tonight. Along the way of this, normal hiring process, I determined by looking carefully at the charter that the acting town administrator is not allowed to appoint permanent employees. and we would like to make an appointment sooner rather than later. The chair asked me to speak to legal counsel about this, and Sarah wrote me a note before she left. The charter's pretty clear. The power does not, can't be delegated to me, but I am empowered to make temporary appointments. And if the board is open to it, the appointment, if the Conservation Commission makes a recommendation, could be made as a temporary appointment, and then it can either be final approved by the board on July 17th or by a future town administrator. Any new employee hired would be under a 90-day probationary period automatically, so it's not sort of upside down in that context.
Okay.
But that would mean you wouldn't have to try to enforce it or call a special meeting, and we wouldn't have to wait a month or longer to make an official offer.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So temporary appointment is appropriate?
Yep. I
Thank
think
you.
so. So this is chairman's report, and now my report is, first off, just want to say thank you to Cheryl and Terrence for your participation on the board for the past few years, and all your input and counsel and support, and thank you on behalf of the town as well, to the both of you. And then,
Thank you.
as you were sitting here earlier, I sent an email to Mr. Johnson, and he happily, looking forward to accepting our offer and then negotiating a contract in the near future, so we'll find out what that means in the next couple of days, and I'll get back to everybody once I hear back from him. I want to speak to him personally. And that's it for me. David, anything?
Yeah, I'll echo your comments on relative to Cheryl and Terrence. Both of them who have given their time to the board and to the town. And although, Terrence, you and I may not have always seen eye to eye on issues, it has been a pleasure, and it's been, I very much appreciate your challenge and your willingness to debate on issues, because if you don't have debate, you don't really always come up with the best decision. And Cheryl, thank you again for your counsel and your friendship.
Cheryl?
As it's been a true honor to serve the town and to serve with all of you on the board, and I thank you for the collaboration, the hard work, and the friendship from this experience, and thank the town for their support and guidance and questions, and helping us all do the best that we can by the town. It's truly been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anything other than echoing your own comments, and you guys are going to be greatly missed next year.
Yeah.
You will be greatly missed too.
Well, you'll still be around.
Love fest. Mr. Donovan, I'll let you close it out.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure serving for the last 3 years. I can't believe it's gone by so quick. I think this time last year when we had the hiccups with resignation on one of the board members, and Cheryl stepped in and filled a big void for us. So that was great. I learned a lot from actually each and every one of you, and David, I really enjoyed our back and forth often. Can't always agree with everybody, but I do appreciate the dedication you have to service and what you feel is important to give to the town, so that's honorable as well. Chris, thank you for running with the mantle as chairperson and being a good friend for the last few years. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And Melissa, I wish you the best going forward. It's been a great opportunity to sit here and work alongside you. And Cheryl, I wish the time was longer, and to Andrew, Steph, and the town staff, thank you for everything you do every day. And I appreciate all the opportunities to work with boards like with Ken and everybody else. So thank you again for your dedication, and Bill for your partnership with helping out in the volunteer. It's a tough job. And hope I left it in as good, if not better place than when I found it. Thank you.
That's the goal. Thank you. So, I don't know, Cheryl, I think you should make a motion to adjourn since you're really adjourning. You're truly adjourning.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Thank you all. Next meeting is July 17th. Oh, that's mine. You can't take that home.
That's mine, baby.
You can't take that home.
Town property. I'm happy to help with the contract negotiations for Greg if you need it.
Yeah, I know.
I have a late schedule in the next couple weeks.
I gotta
If you need help.
give that guy a call.
Hello. How are you? Exactly. My last hat.
Thing taped to my t-shirt. That's what I'm
You're gonna sit here.
Hey, could you sell that as a golf bag?
I'm gonna, yeah, I gotta do that.
So I know who you are?
Yeah, thank you, man.
To see you around.
Hey, of course, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what we decided.
How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
All right.
Jeez, don't break the place.